Hello, I am Paola Catherine. I am here to share information that I learned from a book I read called Your Brain is Always Listening by Dr. Daniel Amen. And this is the book right here. Hope you can see it. Yep. This book, it is amazing. It teaches us that we all have many dragons in our lives, and sometimes we allow those dragons to run over our lives. Sometimes we allow them to take over and just guide our lives. And Dr. Amen is teaching us to learn to tame our dragons so that we have control of our lives. We have control of those dragons. And in this book, he shares techniques, he shares strategies, he gives exercise and just advice of how to tame each of our dragons. You might be wondering, well, what type of dragons are you talking about? Well, he talks about a sad dragon. He talks about an angry dragon. He talks about a judgy dragon and many more. So if you feel like you may be dealing with, one of these 14, 16 dragons he talks about, it might be a good book to read. He focus his work in 4 areas in our lives. The first one is biology, which is our health. The second one is psychology, which is our mental health. And then the third one, it is relationships, like our social life, like the quality of our relationships. And the fourth area is spiritual. So he says that whenever any of these 4 areas of our lives are unbalanced, then we kind of develop that illness, or we tend to develop an unbalanced life, and we let those dragons run our life, and we lose kind of control of ourselves. Like, we need to learn to be in control and tame those dragons. He shares how our brain works and how it's important to focus on our brain health. He talks a lot about our prefrontal cortex, which is right here in front of our brain. He says it is the last part of our brain to develop, and it takes up to like 24, 25 years of our age before it's fully developed. So he gives us different scenarios. One of them I was very impressed and very, like, I learned from it, is like people with ADHD, their prefrontal cortex doesn't function as a traditional person, okay? And he says that whenever our prefrontal cortex is not working correctly, we are less likely to take the correct decisions, because our prefrontal cortex is the one that we use to take decisions, is the one that we use to kind of organize our life. We plan, we set goals, we accomplish things because of our prefrontal cortex is kind of like our boss. He calls it the CEO of our entire body. Is the one that tells you what to do, where you're going, when you're doing it. So it is very, very important for us to keep it healthy, he says. So I understood, after reading the book, that people that are very strict on what they do, and they oversee things, as in they search for perfection, and it's so like unhealthy. It's because the stimulation in the prefrontal cortex, it's overworking, it's overstimulated. But the people that has ADHD have problems taking decisions, staying on have problems staying on a task. It is because the prefrontal cortex, it doesn't have enough stimulation. There is not enough blood running through that area of the brain, so it the consequence is that they cannot make decisions. They're very indecisive. They focus on one thing and then on the next. So you can see kind of like that contrast of having an overstimulated prefrontal cortex and somebody that, their prefrontal cortex is not stimulated at all. And he says it's because of our the brain flow. And to keep our brain healthy, he says that we must stop drinking alcohol. That's not good for our prefrontal cortex. He talks about caffeine. That is not really good for it. He talks about marijuana, vaping, and anything that cuts the blood flow between our body, from our body to our prefrontal cortex, is not healthy for our body. So we need to focus on what's healthy, he says, for our brain, so we can be in charge of our lives. That's one of his mission, trying to teach everybody what to do to keep a healthy brain, promote, he calls it brain health. He talks about people with Alzheimer's as well, that people with Alzheimer's don't have that much of activity in their prefrontal cortex, and then gradually lose the activity and it turns into Alzheimer's. He also shares that he gives the techniques that I really like. He says that instead of us saying, oh, I should do this or I should do that, he shares that we should ask ourselves, okay, I want to do this. Kind of like change the I should for I want, or this is my goal, and try to analyze if our behavior changes. In his story, he talks about him and his dad not having a good relationship, that type of relationship that he wanted, like a father and son. It took years for that relationship to develop, he said. But years before his dad passed away, he wanted to go see his dad, and he said, oh, I should go see my dad. And then he said, no, you know what, I'm going to change that I should for I want. And he said that truly changed his mindset, as in, oh, I want to go see my dad. So that kind of like gave him the feeling, the good feeling that he wants to go see his dad, and that motivate him and kind of allow it to go, like truly make it happen. So he make that happen. He made the habit of wanting to go see his dad. And of course, when his dad passed away, he was glad that he had developed that habit. So if you're trying, he says, if you're trying to develop a new habit, or if you just don't know, if you're not certain of what you should do in a certain scenario, he said, change your should for I want, or for it's my goal, to see if your behavior changes. If your behavior changes, that kind of tells you what you truly want. Like if I said, oh, I should go buy me a new pair of shoes, but if I know I have 20 pairs of shoes in my closet, if I'm just, if I just don't know, but I think I should, then I would ask myself, well, I want a pair of shoes, or it's my goal to get a new pair of shoes. And then I will think, okay, do I really want a new pair of shoes? Do I really, have to have this pair of shoes? Do I really have to make it my goal? So that kind of changes. Well, no, not really. I have 20 pairs in my closet. I don't think I need an extra one. Then that would kind of change your behavior. So he said, try to use that technique. Another technique that he used was, is this good for my brain? It's kind of like his new mission for us to question ourselves, a glass of water versus a glass of juice. If you're about to drink the glass of juice, is this good for my brain? Well, I already drank 3 glasses of juice today. Probably not. Okay? Glass of water, is this good for my brain? Oh, I haven't drank water all day. It is good for my brain. So it's kind of like his new mission for us to question ourselves every time we're about to take a decision. You know, if it has to do with our brain health, then he wants us to add that question into our lives. Is this good for my brain? It is a great book to read. I would recommend it to you. It's a book that I will read once a year to remind me to keep my brain healthy, to remind me to tame my dragon. He says, one more thing, I'm going to close with this, but he says that our prefrontal cortex is our dragon tamer. So if our prefrontal cortex is healthy, it's more likely that you're going to be able to dominate and to tame your dragons so that you will be in charge of your life. Have a great day, and I hope to see you soon. Blessings to you all.